Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Explode Your Expert Business Show. Today I'm here with the one and only, the number one pitching coach, David Beckett. How you doing, David?
I'm doing fine. Delighted to be here. Thank you.
All right, that's brilliant. So we met in Amsterdam at the Base
Yes,
conference. I was speaking there, you were speaking there, and I was immediately blown away when I was listening to your presentation because pitching is something which is very core to me. It's actually how I started doing business. I started doing seminars and events, and I
sure.
became obsessed to learn about different ways of pitching. And so I'm really grateful that I'm here learning from you today. And for everyone who's listening, thank you very much for being here now.
Yeah, great. I'm delighted
So,
to share what I've learned. So that's what I love to do.
in terms of how did you get, before we go into more like specific strategies to create an effective pitch, how did you get into pitching? What's your story behind that?
Well, I started actually. I had a career in a large company. I worked for Canon, the camera company,
Hmm.
and I started back in the 90s. And what I noticed very quickly was the ability to present had a massive influence on people's career. You could see that people listened a bit more to those who could present well, and they listened a bit less to those who couldn't. And I focused on making it a skill of mine. Now, I left that world 16 years ago, and
Hmm.
I did various things. To be honest, I did a couple of jobs, got fired from a couple of jobs after a very steady career in Canon. And 6 years ago, I decided, okay, let's go for myself rather than work for somebody else. My passion was presentation and coaching. But I started working with a startup organization called Startup Bootcamp, and I saw a
Hmm.
completely different way of presenting. Instead of this 30, 40 minutes, I'm peeling the onion, and after 38 minutes, people get the real value of this talk. I saw startups pitch in the first 30 seconds like, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is who's buying from us already, here's how we're solving this multi billion problem. And I
Hmm.
thought, wow, this is something really different to what I've experienced. So I was
Yeah.
known as a good presenter, but I completely changed my way of thinking about presenting, and the pitch really grabbed me. And so I started coaching startups to pitch, and it just seemed to fit this time pressure of getting the story over in no time at all, plus presentation and coaching. This triangle seemed to fit me very well, and I've gone from there really, and taken those skills and added it for large companies and all kinds of professionals.
Is there any pitch that you have helped creating that you are, you work with some clients and
Yes,
they always say, some will have like a real special place in your heart. Is there
yes.
a special pitch that you remember to have helped created that has that place for you?
There's actually lots. I'll talk about one specifically. One thing that I noticed is you do become very personally involved, and your job is to help them shine, but you have a slight responsibility. You're partly on stage with them. But
Yeah.
yeah, I can say there was one guy, a guy called Juan Zamora. He's the head of a great startup, now a scale up called Signatures. And I met him when he was really struggling with his pitch. And, today he's winning pitch competitions. And I didn't do all that. He did. He did the work. But what I was happy about was that we were halfway through this accelerator program, Startup Bootcamp, and he was really struggling. People were telling him you can't pitch. And he'd had a couple of really bad experiences. But
Yeah.
what we did was put a structure in place. And he just worked like crazy using the tools that I gave him. A couple of other people helped him. And, on the day of the demo day, 6 weeks after almost having his head in his hands, I can't pitch.
Hmm.
Maybe I have to stop doing this. He was standing on stage as if it's his home. And now, as I say, he's won pitch competitions. They've raised a lot of money. He's a great entrepreneur. But you could see it was this one specific thing was holding him back. And then
Yeah.
he broke it through real work. People think it's inspiration, but in the end, I deliver tools that I know work. That when people work at it, they follow the method.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really was inspiring to see him make that transition from really struggling to success in just 6, 7 weeks.
And why do you think that coaches, speakers, or entrepreneurs as well, they should master pitching? Why do you think that?
Well, the first thing about a pitch is it's about speed. It's pitching in no time at all. And the one biggest macro trend in the world is people have got less time. Nobody is looking for things more complicated, more detail, take more time. We're all looking for simpler, easier, quicker. So I think people want to make quick decisions. Is this of interest? Yes or no? And then they want to know the headlines. Then they can make a decision themselves. Okay, I'm interested in this. This has value for me. Now let's go into the details. Or thanks very much. We don't have anything in common. Let's go do something else. And I think the pitch is all about triggering people on to go to the next level. Sometimes people think the pitch is about convincing people in the whole thing. But I think the pitch is about just convincing people to take the next step and getting people into the process, getting them engaged with you. I think the pitch really helps anybody, whether that's a coach or an entrepreneur, to get into the kind of the sales funnel. Not a big fan of that phrase, but in the end, it's getting them engaged with you and into that kind of sales process.
I'm 100% on board with you. I mean, I believe that when like the art of pitching is like literally a ticket to financial freedom.
Yes.
Because once you have it, it's not easy to get at the beginning because there are a lot of different components that are playing all at the same time.
Absolutely.
It's like painting this beautiful picture that it looks seamless and beautiful, and then you realize how many different angles and components there are.
Yes.
But at the same time, once you master it, you can use it anywhere.
Yes.
And once you understand the dynamics as well, then you can apply the same dynamics to other pitches that you're doing. So that's why I mean, for me, it changed my life. I wouldn't be where I am now, having 3 companies. Cool. We sold more than like 1.7 million worth of product and services. And that's mainly done through events, pitching, selling our products, doing a sales presentation. And so you can use it, depending on the market where you're in, you can use this to raise fundings. You can use it to sell directly your product or services. At the end of the day, the pitch is the pitch, and that's why I'm so excited about this topic.
Sure.
And it's core to me. I mean, it totally changed my life. So
yes,
let's go a bit more into the nitty gritty. What are the elements of a pitch that works in the way that you teach?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. So one is the form and one is the content. And the content depends a little bit on the situation, but there are some things which are always the same. So what most people do is they open PowerPoint and start preparing slides. And my advice is to leave the software alone for quite a while. So even if you're in a situation where you have to present slides, it's not that you don't use PowerPoint, it's that you start to get your story straight away from PowerPoint. And the way to get the story straight is start with who's the audience and what do they care about? What's on their mind? What's bothering them? What are their biggest challenges? And what type of people are they? And then the second thing is, well, what do I want these people to do as a result of this pitch? What would be the first next action once we've had this conversation, once we've had this pitch? And I think the audience and the objective are steering a lot of what we talk about. Now, what that tends to be is we have a kind of a core of content that we're talking about. But the framing, for depending on who you're talking to, that needs a bit of tuning and a bit of thinking before you even start thinking about the content. And often the opening and the closing will be heavily influenced by the audience and objective, plus a few key things along the way. So that's the first thing, is get the audience and the objective and make a profile of those people to start off with.
Brilliant. So audience and objective first.
Absolutely.
Then once you have the audience and objectives clear in your mind, what's the next step?
And then it's not opening PowerPoint again. It's brainstorming. It's getting the thoughts out of your head. So what we try to do is jam our thoughts into some kind of software, normally PowerPoint or something similar. But the problem is our brains don't really work that way. We have random brains. We come up with different ideas all the time. So we need a tool that adapts to the way our brains work. And that tool is very simple. It's Post-it notes. And Post-it notes are a great way. It's very analog. It's think, write, done. And if you don't like what you wrote, you just screw it up and write something else. So what you do is let your brain think and think about what's all the things I could talk about in this pitch. So think wide and deep. much more than the actual pitch and think, okay, what's the problem we're solving, or what's the solution we're offering? What's unique about this solution? Why do I believe it's a great proposition? Who's buying this already? What's in it for them? These are all topics that people can think about, but get them out of your head first, organize your thoughts, and then start building a storyline. Once you've got that, that will help you to prepare, whether it's slides or just a storyline you want to talk. Just getting that process of thinking it through and writing it down, organizing the thoughts will help you a lot.
I remember when I saw you at the base conference. You had this massive slide with all the post-it notes, different color codes, and so is there a particular process that you use in terms of post-it notes, or is it just think, write, put it up, or take it away, or is that another layer to this?
So the way I work with startups is I use a thing called the pitch canvas. And actually, that will work for a lot of entrepreneurs who maybe not necessarily raising funding, but they're maybe pitching their business or pitching their customers. And so there's a lot of blocks in the pitch canvas for startups which are relevant for a coach, for an entrepreneur, and so on. And so I think there's a bit of structure that you need to take to the brainstorming. And the pitch canvas gives you that structure. So it starts with a statement of the change, the big thing you're changing in the world. What are you looking to change? Then what's the problem that you're solving? What's the solution you've created? What's unique about that solution? Can you demonstrate what that's going to look like? And then how will you demonstrate that? And then customer traction, who's already buying so far? These are all things that anybody who's pitching a business, whatever type of business, they could think about. Then when you're a startup, you would talk about things like the business model, the investment. But if you're pitching your own business, you wouldn't talk necessarily about those things, but you would talk about, okay, what do you need from your audience as a first next step? What would be the next step to take? What are you looking for? Maybe you make it clear about what costs are involved, or simply what would be the next steps for them. And then the last part of the brainstorm is about why you and why you believe this is a great proposition. Why are you enthusiastic about what you do? And that's a structure to the brainstorm. And the first step is very rough, to get them all out, as many post-its as possible, and then take another flip chart and take the ideas, think, who's the audience? What's the objective? How long have I got? And build the storyline from those rough ideas into a structure.
And you've written a book around the pitch canvas, if I remember well.
That's right.
So, all right, what's the book called?
The book is called Pitch to Win, and it's available in English, Dutch, and German, and hopefully a few more languages soon, but the usual sort of places. And there, I've taken everything that I've learned and packaged that in the book. And my goal is not that people understand it; it's that they can do it. And everything is about exercises, things that you can do to take you closer to being able to make your pitch. Well, my workshops are built around exercises, things that you can actually do, not just think. So what I've described, everybody can make a profile of an audience. Everyone can think, what's the objective? What do I want these people to do? Everyone can write all their thoughts down, then organize them. Sometimes we think pitching is a kind of a skill that only a few are born to do. But everybody can do all these things, and gradually you build yourself up to the point where anybody can pitch.
Yeah, so we're gonna put the link of Pitch to Win here in the show notes because I'm sure that people will be like, okay, I wanna see how the canvas looks like. I'm a big fan myself of canvases. We use that as a framework to help our clients grow. We have created the Expert Business Canvas.
Oh, great.
And, it is a very simple and visual way to organize your thoughts, whether it's for a pitch, whether it's for your business. So I'm a big fan from the first canvas I've seen, which was the business canvas.
Yes.
That one was what opened my mind that actually you don't need to have. I remember doing my first business plan, this 36-page document that I never opened again, or
exactly.
Probably the same with pitches. People writing pages and pages and pages of notes that they're never going to remember. I mean, they kind of like write a freaking play. They have to memorize.
Exactly.
But that's not how the brain works. So
no, we need to get our ideas out and just think creatively and have a look at those ideas. organize them, then things start to fall in place. It's really difficult to do that in PowerPoint or software.
Yeah. David, where are you from originally?
I'm English, but I've been away for 22 years. I've been living in Amsterdam for 22 years. And,
Which part of the UK?
From the south, from Kent and Surrey. And
Right.
yeah, so I made my Brexit a long time ago.
Well, I'm in London. I live in London at the moment.
Okay.
But what made you move to Amsterdam, and why did you decide to stay there?
Yeah, actually, I was 30, and give my age away, and I decided, I got an offer of a job in Canon in Amsterdam, and I
All right,
thought,
so that was Canon.
yeah, and I thought, you know what, let's just go there for a couple of years, see how it goes. Seems like a nice place. Been a couple of times, and it just turned out to be a great place. I loved working at Canon, which is a great company. I actually moved away and moved to Austria for 4 years, and then came back to Amsterdam in 2007. And when I started my own business, it's a great place to start a business, especially in innovation and entrepreneurship, because there's a lot going on in Amsterdam around that topic. So it was, you could make a bit of a reputation for yourself fairly quickly and build a network. It worked out really well.
That's brilliant to hear. So now, getting back to the pitch,
Yes.
we've been talking so far more about the preparation.
Yes.
So having the content in mind, creating the content, looking at the audience,
Sure.
the objective. What now? After the preparation, you have another stage, which is
Yes.
the stage of rehearsal.
Sure.
That gets you ready for the big moment, right?
Indeed.
Any particular strategy or tip or suggestion, or even maybe things to avoid, depending on where you want to go, to do or not to do during the preparation?
Sure. So I think I've heard quite often that people say, well, I don't like to over rehearse. But the danger with that is finding out whether it's good or not in real time. And that means you're standing in front of the audience. It's the first time you're saying some things, and you find, they just don't get this. When you say it out loud, it just doesn't make sense. So what I recommend people to do is when they're building the story, as they're building that story, to verbalize it, say it out loud, start to hear themselves. Actually, I'm speaking on Friday at, it's not a full TEDx talk, but I'm introducing something at TEDx Amsterdam on Friday, and I'm following my own process. I make a script. It's a short talk, so there I make a script, and then I'm saying it out loud and trying to find, are these words that I would say to a friend over a coffee? If they're not, I change the words. If it says, we will execute this plan, I don't say that to a friend over a coffee. I say, we're going to make it happen. So change it in the script to, we're going to make it happen. It doesn't have to be technically correct. It needs to be the language that you would use. So one of the steps to rehearsal is actually during the time when you're building the story is to say things out loud. So think it through, write it down, say it out loud, and ideally get some feedback a bit early on the basic structure of the story, so that you're not married to the whole thing. You don't prepare, and then finally show it to somebody when it's too late to change anything. Yeah. So these are steps that will help you. But especially rehearsal is all about saying things out loud. You can't rehearse in your head. You need to verbalize it into the world. And listen to yourself, sometimes recording yourself and then listening back or even watching back. Nobody likes that. We all hate doing that. But it's one of the most powerful ways to find out, is it going right? Are we emphasizing the things that matter? Are we doing anything that distracts people? Is this the talk that I actually want to make? And the more that you go through that process and then try to make refinements, when you stand in front of the audience, it will feel more natural. And that audience could be one person, could be 5, could be 50, 500. But the more that you verbalize things and say things out loud, the more natural it will feel. You'll make it more natural, and it will come across that much better. You'll connect with the people you're talking with in a different way, actually.
Yeah, there is this myth of, I don't want to sound too robotic, therefore I'm not going to rehearse. No, actually, a rehearsal helps you to say what you want to say, not sounding robotic, sounding personal, and driving the message, in particular, the message that you want to drive across.
Exactly.
I remember the first time I did a pitch and I was selling one of my products.
Right.
I was really excited because we just created this mastermind group and I wanted to put it out to the world. And we're running an event. We had about 120 people in our room. So I was saying, okay, there are going to be a lot of people that are going to buy. The price point was not huge, so we're expecting a lot of people to join. Unfortunately, I made the mistake of not rehearsing out loud the pitch. So during the presentation that I was used to deliver, perfect, everyone was engaged, everyone getting incredible reviews, I can see the energy building up in the room. It was fantastic. Arriving the moment of the pitch, it was like this drop of energy. I couldn't find my words. I didn't know where to go anymore.
I feel for you.
I feel for myself as well now. Yeah. But this, but it is. I remember one person bought, and it was like £120 product,
right.
And probably bought out of pity or out of compassion. Just say this poor guy up there, like, give me some money, needs it. But that was the moment when I said, no, that is not gonna happen anymore.
Sure.
And it was so bad that I said, no, I'm not gonna put myself in this situation again.
Yeah.
In particular, in the moment where you are selling something and you have a lot of emotions going through.
Absolutely.
And so, in fact, what I would love to transition now is to the last part, which is you have done your planning.
Yes.
You have rehearsed.
Yes.
Now is game time.
Yes.
It's game time. So, what other things that we need to consider or to be aware of to prepare ourselves the most during that time?
Sure. Well, I think the two most important things or parts of the pitch to practice and get rock solid are the opening and the closing. And the opening is the moment of most stress, and the closing is the moment of the last thing you say is the first thing they will remember, and you have the call to action in there. So the opening, I would always recommend people to have the first 60 seconds absolutely memorized. If it's important, it's worth doing the work and saying it out loud again and again so that it's rock solid. And it also, what a lot of talks start with is a very sort of rambling approach, like, hey, I'm happy you're here, and what a lovely location, and lovely to see some smiling faces here, and I know it's raining outside, blah, 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 blah. And what happens is we think that we'll know what to say in this kind of little ice-breaking part. But what happens is, because the stress is there, we just start rambling if we haven't made a plan. So my recommendation is get the first minute rock solid. Make a plan for exactly, even to the point of, writing down, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I've seen somebody start their talk and they say, good morning, ladies. Oh, it's the afternoon, isn't it? Oh, I knew I'd make a mistake, and that
you're already
you're lost already at the beginning, and your platform for the talk has evaporated. Yeah. And if you get that first minute rock solid, that is really a platform for success. Then the closing is the sum up and what you want these people to do. So I always recommend to make a plan for the last 30 to 60 seconds and tell them the three big things that you really want them to remember. So what you've seen is this, this, and this. Then what we would love you to do is this. And maybe a personal statement of, I believe this can be really great for you. This can make a massive change for you because, and put yourself on the line as the last message. So that in that last 30 to 60 seconds, they get the key points, they know what they're supposed to do, and they get a feeling about you as a professional and a person. And I think that opening and closing are the things to pay the most attention to. Quite often the middle is stuff that we've spoken about quite a bit. But the opening and the closing, that's the stuff to make sure is really great.
Yeah. Totally resonate with you because as you mentioned, when you are going on stage, that's the moment where the butterflies are there, the nerves are there. And so if you can kind of get your mind going almost on autopilot on whatever is going to say, then suddenly your body also gets into the flow. So you're kind of give yourself permission to get into the rhythm without putting yourself too much pressure on your mind to process this many bits of information. in an emotional moment.
Exactly
So
that.
that's so powerful, very
Yeah.
powerful. Okay, so now it's time to go to the last part of the interview where
Yes.
we are lifting the veil. We are
Yes.
lifting the veil, David. So, what is a tool or app or a book, something that you have maybe done recently that you would recommend to our listeners?
Yeah. So there is an entrepreneur that I like very much. It's a guy called Derek Sivers. It's
Hmm.
Derek Sivers, Sivers. He wrote a book
Yeah.
called Anything You Want. And he had a big company in the 90s called CD Baby. And he sold it for 22 million and gave all the money away, by the way.
Hmm.
And I think he's got some really, it's a very short book, and it's 40 short chapters. You'll read it in a couple of hours. But I find that some of the principles in that book I use every day. He's very big on not focus on be big, but focus on just make your customers ecstatically happy. Solve their problems for them. If you do this, everything else that you want will follow. And just focus on these things. Focus on just the person whose problem you're solving. And I found that a real guideline all the way through developing this business. I always focus on the
Yeah.
person that's in front of me. So I find that really helpful. The other thing is, what have I think for in general, I listen to a lot of podcasts. So I love your podcast. I listened to one called How I Built This. I really like that one, which is interviews with people who have built big companies. I learned a lot from that. But Derek Sivers has also started something. He has a great blog as well, I must say, dereksivers.org. Very short pieces, just some ideas, and you'll always come away with a different thinking. So
that man is sharp.
yeah.
Have you listened to the interview that he did with Tim Ferriss for his podcast?
Yes. Yeah.
That was the
Fantastic.
first time I was introduced to Derek Sivers.
Yeah.
I think I listened to that interview at least 3 times.
Yeah.
It's just this unique way of seeing the word
Yeah.
and a beautiful way also of expressing. We're talking about public speaking right now.
Yeah.
It's just a pleasure to listen to him. I
Yeah. He's got a
found
great
personally.
voice. One last thing on that. One thing I really took away. He said that he spent years learning to become a singer. He was writing songs, and people kept telling him, "You can't sing, you can't sing." And it took him about 15 years of lessons and all sorts of efforts. Finally, he developed a good voice. And then people would say to him, Derek, you're lucky. You got a great voice. You were born. And I just love that example whereby it's, and there's so many things from him that show you it's in the end, it's about hard work. It's about focusing on what really matters and not getting distracted by the nonsensical stuff around that. Keeping focused on solving those problems for people, that will always take you further.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, David, thank you very much for being here with us today. It's
Sure.
been an incredible interview, definitely jam-packed of nuggets. So
Good.
make sure, guys, listen to this interview again because, as I mentioned, pitching is one of the most important skills that you can have, in particular if your business is based on your personal brand, if your business is based on
Absolutely.
yourself. You are getting out there, you are representing your business, you are the one most of the time going out there getting clients. And if it's not just you and you have a team, they got to do it. And so that's why it's important to invest time, resources, money in learning this skill, because
Sure.
once you have it, it will be with you for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
So how can people reach out to you, David? What do you have for us?
So my website is best3minutes.com. The company is called Best 3 Minutes. And at best3minutes.com, there's various free resources. They'll find the pitch canvas and a whole bunch of other stuff that will help them get started. We also have an online academy and a book that get started with the free stuff and see whether that helps you get off the ground. And for some people, that's already enough. And then that's great. Then they can tell their story. And if they need more help, they can find it at best3minutes.com.
All right, brilliant. Best3minutes.com. The link is in the show notes and in the comments, so make sure you check it out. And David, has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you
Thanks
very
very
much for
much.
joining us today.
I was delighted. Thanks again.